Utility Authority to order.
Thank you, Chair Lawson. The first item of business is roll call. Director Carter.
Here.
Director Jacobs.
Here.
Director Skinner.
Here.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Here.
Chair Lawson.
Here.
Thank you, Chair. The next item is the invocation.
Let us pray tonight. I just want to make a mention that Director Haslam lost his mom. She was suffering, and she passed away at his house with her family, and I just want to keep their family in our prayers. So, dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for all the opportunities you put before us. Thank you for this board that you have assembled, Father. Please be with the Haslam family as they mourn the loss of their dear mother, but rejoice knowing where she's at this very moment. Father, please lead us and guide us throughout the day in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair Lawson. The next item is administrative items. The first of which is 2024-666, oath of office for new authority director, with the recommendation that the city clerk, Kristen Bryan, administer an oath of office for the new director of the authority.
Good evening, Kristen Bryan. I'm your city clerk, and I'm here to administer the oath of office. So I'm going to approach. Mr. Jacobs, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
honor,
honor,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida.
and of the state of Florida.
And I am duly qualified
And I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the state
of the state
and under the charter
and under the charter
of the city of Gainesville.
of the city of Gainesville.
And that I will well
And I will well
and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties
perform the duties
of a member of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority,
as a member of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority,
upon which I
upon which I
am now about to enter.
am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Before we take them out and say speech.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. Before we proceed, Chair Lawson, prior to introducing this, please note that the agenda has been amended to include additional backup for item number 2024-636, which is, to shorten the initial part of it, a resolution requesting City of Gainesville's ordinance number 2024-352 and ordinance number 2024-448, placing referendum on the November ballot, et cetera. The backup has been attached in our online portal and is available to the public. There are some copies out in the foyer. Additionally, please note that the adoption of the agenda item includes the consent agenda and any items listed therein. Public comment for this item will also be included for that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We adopt the agenda as stated.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Comments?
On the consent agenda is an $11 million settlement that's being paid on GRU ratepayers after the city attorney went out and hired the most expensive attorneys on the face of the earth, suffered a $120 million judgment, ends up on the hook for $11 million. Number one, why isn't this against the city? It's a city-owned vehicle. City attorney handled this. That's number one. Number two, how many disasters like this are in the pipeline and being mishandled by the city attorney who is not here tonight because he's getting fired? So this is a lot of money to be on the consent agenda, and this may just be the tip of the iceberg. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comments, back to the board for discussion on the agenda. Seeing no additional comments, we'll have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as stated.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment on approval of the minutes. Seeing no public comment, back to the,
Oh, wait a minute.
we haven't gotten down to the public comment yet. Yes, yes. Almost. Back to the board. Any additional comments on approval of the previous minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is chair comments.
I would just like to say, first of all, welcome to our new board member. I really appreciate your willingness to serve this community and our utility. I believe that we were charged as board members appointed by the governor, elected by a state law, to support the utility through every means possible as far as providing safe, consistent, and a cost-effective utility. And that's what we're charged with, which is upholding the House Bill 1645. Unfortunately, we're also going to have to spend some time as a board defending the authority itself so that we can continue to uphold the legislation. So if you remember last board meeting, we asked our council to develop several strategies to provide to us so that we can continue to do the work that the governor has charged us to do. So tonight, we'll talk about several of those items, and we'll also have under our council's comments, also make some additional recommendations. So thank you in advance for all your hard work on that, and I look forward to discussing it. And with that, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is general public comment.
Good evening, I'm Debbie Martinez. The City Commission appears to be resorting to extortion tactics in their desperation to get their GRU cash cow back, to feed their spending addiction for things they want but do not need. I trust this board will continue to put GRU customers and the financial stability of our utility first. I would like to thank Mr. Jacobs for being willing to serve on this board. Thank you. Democrats and others have been calling for a separate independent governing board of directors to govern over GRU for well over a decade, and we are extremely grateful to have you. We once had both Democrats and Republicans serving on the City Commission who made sure GRU was reliable and affordable. After 2009, they threw affordability out the window when the City Commission, all Democrats, members of my party, more than lost their way when they decided to try to save the world from global warming on the backs of GRU customers with a multi-billion-dollar monstrous biomass tree burner incinerator plant to produce electricity we did not need. Their financial debacle left GRU customers stuck paying sky-high GRU bills. Instead of working to try to fix the financial disaster, the City Commission, led by Lauren Poe and Harvey Ward, went on a spending and hiring spree on the backs of GRU customers. The abuse got so out of hand, Democrats and others had no choice but to go to Tallahassee for help. These political groups, who have the luxury and means to attend these board members, many who supported the very members of the City Commission who drove our utility over the financial cliff, want to shut down our much-needed independent governing board, and they do not speak for all the GRU customers. Thank you all for being willing to serve for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Chuck Ross. Congratulations, Mr. Jacobs, getting appointed to the board. Good luck. First thing I would like to bring up is the IRP, the Integrated Resources Plan, was discussed, I believe it was in February of '24, and I don't think it's been brought back since, and I understand that within the next 2 years, we have a major facility that is either due to be retired or requires significant improvements. And I'm wondering where we're at with that. That seems like something that needs to be dealt with. And then there's another facility, or two rather, they're going to be coming, I guess, deferred or not deferred, taken out of service possibly by 31, I think it is. The CT1, C32? Thank you. CT1 and CT2, I think, they're the generators that you use for rapid startup or whatever you call it. Anyway, second thing is, I've got a concern about information that's under the CEO corner for regarding the referendum. I don't believe that you should be using public monies, which is the website, to put information for or against the referendum, and especially since part of the information, in my opinion, is false with regard to the excess draws that we've discussed before. And I've given you out the information. I know, Mr. Lawson, you're a CPA. I hope you've looked at it. In my opinion, the losses are not 68 million from 2018 to 2021. They're more in the tune of 33 million. And that's a significant difference. Now, the fact remains that you can probably do whatever you want with a GFT, but that's not the point. We should at least start off with the correct numbers that we're using. And I'm not going to go into the details I've gone before about how I arrived at it. You've got the numbers. You can look at the financial statements. That's what they're based on, the audited financial statements. And you can't play around with parts of the audited financial statements, which are based on generally accepted accounting principles, also known as GAAP, and take a position that it's whatever you want it to be. I mean, now I know that the formula in the, basically, when you get right down to it in HB 1645, you can probably do whatever you want with the GFT, but just don't lie about the excess for those years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Angela Castile. I just wanted to thank Jack Jacobs for being a part of the board tonight. Thank you. And obviously the rest of you, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I'd like to review the material behind the introduction tab. I have published 30 essays in the Lathrop Chronicle looking in depth at various issues governing GRU. I think you'd find that helpful to understand this very complex area you're in. At the last meeting, you trumpeted how you defeased $79 million in debt this year, and that's wonderful, but the debt is $2,000 million. And you went in the hole an additional $117 million last year, $46 million a year before. It'll be years before you get back to the debt that was left when Bilarski was fired, so let's not kid ourselves. I'd like to know, who does Holland and Knight represent in the bond validation proceeding? Who pays Holland and Knight? And who does Holland and Knight report to with respect to the bond validation proceeding? I have the same concerns as Mr. Fox in that you're looking at the retirement of 51.3% of your generating capacity by 2032, sir, and there's no plan to deal with that. And if you don't deal with it, they'll put you out of business and you'll have to file for bankruptcy. They will watch this very closely. Why we are here, there's a picture that explains why we're here today, and these people have never been held accountable for their actions. I have an email from a GRU employee that was sent to me anonymously. I'd like to read it. Since 2008, when we started drinking the very expensive biomass Kool-Aid, skilled craft workers at GRU have seen their hourly rates increase by approximately 27%, whereas upper-level management directors have experienced a rise of about 35% over the same period, and the inflation rate was 47%. So this was one of the costs of biomass
Your people say they haven't been paid fairly or adequately. These are skilled people. These are people working on power lines in bad weather. These are people crawling into sewer lines. The city commission is cooking up a 25% increase in residential tax collection fee. They're going to hold off to after the election. At my house, that'll take the no consumption bill from $110.92 to $121 before anything is consumed, sir. I can afford it, but a lot of people can't. While this free-for-all spending with no tax increase, as was claimed was coming when you tweaked the direct transfer, they have $1.1 million a year for downtown ambassadors. No bid contract, no budget cuts, reckless, wasteful spending, and SLA losses go unaccounted for. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Shepard. I decided to speak tonight because I want to welcome y'all. Welcome the new guy to the board. I hope he's able to take and change things for us because us, the general public, are hurting bad. We're in a position of almost becoming homeless. So over these bills, people are paying $963 electric bill for a double wide trailer. This is not coherent for anyone to have to take and pay. My electric bill was $649, I believe, and I'm finding it hard to pay that. I live in a fixed income, but I'm not talking only myself. I want to talk about the people in which I represent. And this year has been a can-kicking ordeal, going down the road, raising taxes. For what? If you could raise the taxes, giving us an excuse why you're raising the taxes, City Mayor. Jerry, you're raising our utility bills. I don't see any sense in it. There's no need for it. So I want to take and say, I welcome the comments that Mr. Carney said, spot on. That's all I have to say. Is thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Richard Schwab. I'm from Perry, Florida, believe it or not. You're probably going, well, what the heck is a guy from Perry, Florida doing at a Gainesville Regional Utility meeting? Well, I happen to be a supplier of your biomass power plant of fuel. And in the last year, over the average of what we've hauled into your mill, you've cut our ability to be able to haul to you by 52%. Now, we have an unspoken agreement that we would supply wood to your plant as a fuel source, sustainably sourced wood supply. And we would go into debt, we would buy equipment, we would service that equipment, we would have it ready to go to where you could have a steady fuel supply at that plant. But unfortunately, through choices and decisions that the board has made or the management of the plant has made or whoever, the decision of how you run that plant has greatly affected our business and our ability to be able to be healthy as businesses that are partners with GRU to supply you with fuel. Now, if you run this plant over here behind you, that's a gas plant, you can turn a valve on and off and the gas kind of stays. It's already been in a pipeline. Same thing with a coal plant or whatever else that you wanted to fuel your plant with. But fuel for a biomass power plant is harvested sustainably and delivered in real time. And in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to have a constant market to be able to keep your suppliers healthy. And when you reduce your supply by 52%, that changes your whole business dynamic, especially what you budgeted and other things. And you guys realize that because you run a business here providing utilities to the great customers of the Gainesville area. I would challenge you and encourage you strongly to consider how you're running the Deer Haven plant. It's not being utilized to its fullest potential. I understand that natural gas may be a cheaper fuel source today, but you have a great power production facility. You should be able to use it for its life and be able to have your producing force in a healthy, sustainable manner, because we're using your market to sustainably manage forest for habitat restoration, site prep, and other things where that would normally either be left there to mess up the environment or possibly even go up into the atmosphere through carbon by just burning it by site prep. So what you're doing is a service to the environment, not just making green electricity, but you're also providing fuel reduction services to the woods in the environment and how we manage it. We're that tool. We use that. And I would strongly encourage you, please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ed, maybe at another time we could comment on that. You could give us some information on that.
Yeah, I'll do it under my comments. Sure.
Yes, sir. My name is, and ladies, my name is Eddie Hodge. I'm the president and owner of Williston Timber Company. As Richard said about being a supplier to GRU, it's a biomass plant, we've got a lot of money tied up in this production. As many of you may know, and some of you may not, but the chipper that prepares this wood, and by the way, this is a waste material that we have to go out and procure from various landowners. And when we do that, and we use a chipper, as y'all know, that's what prepares it. Those are $1 million each. We have 2 of them. I know Richard has probably 6. So when the contractors, when we've been there 7 years, Richard's been there longer, but when we go out and make those type of purchases, and I've been in this business for 49 years of supplying mills, paper mills, sawmills, basically being a logger my entire life. In fact, sitting with me is several hundred years of experience, and that's family on that road, right down to my sons. So I guess in looking at this, I'd ask any of you that, I say whatever, we're not up here asking for raises, we're not up here asking y'all to make any concessions. We're just saying that how can anybody, any of y'all that depends on a weekly paycheck, how can you make enough profit that 52% of the time you're running and 48% you are part? We have men that, what are we supposed to do with them? These shipping crews are very specialized pieces of equipment on them. We can't just go do something else with them, clear land or whatever. That's all they're good for, and they are a major investment. What I would encourage you to do is have somebody from the board here that could look at what it takes to be a producer and a supplier. Y'all have a great facility. The big need for it, as Richard spoke to. But also, y'all have to consider that there's a human factor in it. There's families here, you know. And if the thing wasn't there, you know, and there isn't another one around anywhere, but if it wasn't, then obviously we'd go find something else to do, you know. But it wouldn't be chipping, we wouldn't own this specialized equipment. So what I'm here for today, I know nobody didn't appreciate Richard speaking. He speaks for all of us, a lot of us that are producing. I just encourage you to get somebody on the board or somebody that works with you to reconsider taking this much downtime. We cannot do again this year what we did last year, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, all our new visitors, for coming up and speaking to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is CEO comments.
Well, that's aptly placed, isn't it? Yeah, I heard what the gentleman discussed here in regard to taking less biomass product. One of the things that we are headed into is approximately a 5-week turbine outage that comes every 10 years. So it's that time. So one of the reasons we're not buying as much is we're going to be shut down for 5 weeks as we go through the inspection and we do what is, generally accepted utility practices. But up until this time, we also have experienced some quite low gas prices. So to give you an idea, Kelly is operating somewhere around $20 a megawatt, and the biomass plant is at $35 a megawatt. That's about a 75% increase in price. By running the biomass plant down to 50 megawatts, we're saving $5 million a year for our customers. And if we hadn't bought the biomass plant, we would be running that at 75 megawatts and you'd all be happy. But, that difference between the 75 and the 40, that would probably be another $5 million. So this is about running the utility on a pecuniary basis, as is in accordance with House Bill 1645. We can sit down and talk to you as suppliers and see what situation you're in so that you can better understand ours, and maybe there's some avenues that we can better understand what helps you out and what doesn't. But we do have a management company, BFM, that manages that for us. But I'd be glad to set up a meeting so that we can talk to you folks.
We love a meeting, please.
Sure. We'll reach out if you, give me your. I understand running a business, and
Yes, sir.
it's difficult. I understand.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By murmur, is public coming over?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I was a little confused.
I don't have a lot to say other than tonight's kind of a night of resolutions. I'm glad that the chair brought up the topic of operating under House Bill 1645. You all were tasked or created with the purpose of managing, operating, and controlling the utility. So we're going to have some resolutions that go toward each one of those. With the managing would be the attorney, with the operations it would be the right-of-way, and for the controlling it would be the referendum. So with that, that's what the evening is going to entail, and we'll turn it over to the attorney, I suppose.
Mr. Chair, in our comments, I'm looking for a motion from the board to authorize our office to work with your CEO, general manager, and to file suit if necessary. We're asking for relief as a part of our resolutions that are on the agenda this evening for the city to take notice that there was a special act passed by the legislature, and it was on July 1st, 2023, Chapter 2023-348 of the Florida statutes, which is formerly known as House Bill 1645, that created this authority. It's our opinion, and you directed our office last meeting to look into this to see if we would have standing to bring a lawsuit if necessary, if we're not able to find relief with the city, and that relief does not appear to be found in any of our correspondence or any of the entrees that we've made thus far. In fact, it's resulted in a ordinance that's been passed on 2 occasions, which calls for a referendum to do away with this authority. That's basically the gist of what it is that is the action that's been taken by the city of Gainesville. We believe that that action is directly in opposite to the express language that's found in House Bill 1645 that implements this authority. And this really boils down to a fairly simple question. Is there a state law that preempts the authority of the city of Gainesville to take actions which are in direct contravention to the act that we're talking about? I spoke with and talked with Ed Bilarski before the meeting, and he comes away with the same opinion and result that I do. Every time I read 1645, I get something more out of that bill. But the very straightforward language that we have in the bill says that we have, the special act has created GRUA, an operating unit of city government, which I believe creates a separate entity and allows us to bring a lawsuit and that we have standing. That's our opinion. And we would be seeking an action of declaratory relief in this instance. But the act allows for the express purpose of managing, operating, controlling, and otherwise having broad authority with respect to the utilities owned by the city of Gainesville. The actions of the city would be directly and opposite to all of that. So we're asking for a motion to authorize our office to work with your CEO, GM, to file suit as necessary to remedy this wrong.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make that motion if you'd like one, sir.
I think that would be great.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize Walker and Foltz to work with the CEO, GM, to draft up language that would prepare us for a lawsuit to defend our position. Is that what we're looking for here?
That is exactly right.
And I believe, and to file.
And to file.
And to file, yes, sir.
So you don't need to wait on another board meeting?
No.
We're
You're
authorizing
going.
you to move ahead.
Yes, sir.
I'll second that motion.
So the motion is second, public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, this item is the last item on the agenda, 2024-636, so I guess you amended the agenda, which is fine, but I just want to point that out to you. I am curious, like I have enormous respect for Mr. Walker, but I'm just curious, if the goal is to keep it off the ballot, of course, we've wasted months. Of course, there's probably some deadline where the ballot's going to be printed and can't be changed. So it may be too late to keep it off the ballot, which is unfortunate. But I'd like to know why we're not asking for a writ of prohibition, which would go to a different judge because it's an extraordinary writ, and it would also be prioritized over a declaratory judgment action. I would say this. I'm sure Mr. Walker is going to say, if you can't keep it off the ballot, don't count the votes until the legitimacy of the provision is litigated. That would be one thing he could ask for. If you can't keep it off the ballot, let the votes be cast, but don't count them. And if it's invalidated, they may never be counted, except if the agitators want to go pay the money and count them themselves or something. So that's my concern, is why are we sort of doing the slow, general method when we have the extraordinary writ of prohibition? And keep in mind, the only reason you can do this is you're not suing the city commission. You're suing the supervisor of elections. So on some of this other stuff you're going to run into, like the right-of-ways, you can't sue each other. So if you just refuse to get the permits, there's nothing they can do about it. They can go to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the other side of this that I wish to address. I'm Jeffrey Shapiro, by the way. The other side of it is the vote. And voting is sacrosanct. It's a key part of our democracy here in the United States and in Florida as well. And the city commission voted on the principle that its residents need to be able to vote on whether or not their city charter should be changed to eliminate their ability to affect the management of Gainesville residents, of Gainesville, of GRU. So I think that on that basis, you're up against a wall, and it will be difficult. It's not a clear-cut thing, I think. But certainly, the Constitution of the state of Florida can quite likely preempt the law that was passed as a local law. A local law is different from a statewide law. And so, and this law has the ability to affect municipalities throughout Florida. And so I think it'll be of utmost concern for the courts to decide these cases. We are filing another lawsuit. Gainesville Residents United, that is filing another lawsuit that is a redo of the Quo Warranto lawsuit that we filed before, which was dismissed without prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Chuck Ross? Well, first of all, I concur with the prior speaker, Jeffrey Shapiro. And, it's interesting, one of the cases I think that they used to dismiss the lawsuit was the Orlando Utilities Commission case, if I'm not wrong. And it's interesting in that case, which was in 1923, that they did that law over 100 years ago. Setting that aside, that was before there was home rule and a couple of other changes into the Constitution. It was all, I forgot what year that was done. But the bottom line is this, is, you know how that the Utilities Commission was ratified? With a referendum by the people that were around that time, which weren't a lot, I imagine, in 1923. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, but I believe that that's the Orlando's Utilities Commission. And the commission is appointed by the local government, not the governor. And, they're answerable to somebody. You guys really aren't answerable to anybody. You're not even answerable. I understand it. You're not even answerable to the governor, because the governor can appoint you and, I guess, remove you, but he can't tell you what to do. So really, nobody can tell you what to do, and nobody can vote you out in the local public. How can you guys, if you think about it, it's a catch-22. Answerable to nobody. And how can that possibly be a constitutional board? How could you possibly be a constitutional board? Don't see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Donald Shepard, and I call myself the people's representative, and we'll be showing you how much of a representative I am once this lawsuit goes through. This lawsuit needs to be happening at lightning speed, should be happening tonight, because all of you know the characters that were involved with breaking the Constitution. It goes on in the City Hall every week. So, we see it, we know it, and what Kim Bolton has done withholding the Republican votes, she should lose her job, and she should never be able to take and represent any city in America. This woman deliberately did the same thing Pam Carpenter did, and as he said, that Mrs. Horthy took and had this back in 1923. Well, my godfather was one of them that took and tried to stop this, and as he had said, there was nothing that he could do at the time. So G.P. Wilmot is a multi-billionaire. He died in '83, and all his assets are in escrow. So when I get to be the city mayor, which I plan to be, and you say that the governor has no hold on this, or that man did? Yes, he does. Otherwise, his comments wouldn't be happening. And these lawsuits would be at a yank of the ear before it's happening now, which I think they shouldn't, because this here has been like a stab in the heart to all the public. The way they're withholding overcharges of bills, withholding their money for the money they put down to turn their electric on, and charging that over and over again, all that needs to go back to the public. And I got a lot of things on my mind as far as how I'm gonna do this, but we're gonna see the actions happen. If Ron DeSantis has his way, if Donald Trump has his way, if the people back me to be their mayor, we're gonna see the changes of this city be dropped by $500 per business person, and be estimated $93,000 go to each person who pays the GRU bill. Another thing is that the city or somebody buying up people's businesses,
Chair
like Clay
Larson,
Electric,
that's time.
they need to stop. And
Sir, thank you.
so that's my comments, and thank you all.
Thank you.
again, Angela Castile. I'm happy to see that there's a lawsuit that will be filed. I also would like to address the fact that the GRU Board Authority represents every GRU customer, not just those inside the city limits. That is why the referendum does not need to go through. It needs to be stopped because utility is owned by the people it serves. It serves people outside the city limits as well. Thank you very much.
I support the motion, but I have a question for the attorney. If the city commission put a ballot initiative, a referendum on the ballot to outlaw open carry, and it passed, would the city be able to enforce that law, or would state law take precedent? So my question is, even if this gets on the ballot and it passes a referendum, wouldn't it be just a exercise in futility since it's a state law? You know, and you can put anything. You notice they didn't bother putting that on the ballot to outlaw open carry, but it just seems kind of like a political tactic, knowing that it's a state law and they're wanting to put a referendum on the ballot using GRU customers' money and property tax owners' money, you know, to spend all this time. Who knows what they're paying Dan Nee to help them with this? But so that's my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Bobby Murmer, coordinator of the Alachua County Labor Coalition. Labor Coalition obviously would like you to vote no on this motion, but we all know that it is already done. It's going to pass unanimously. But I would hope that despite intending to vote yes, you would at least do your due diligence or require your attorney to do his due diligence. 2 questions should be asked of him, and he should have to explain it in depth right here, right now. 1, how can the city sue itself? That's an important question. The HB 1645 does not provide an avenue for the GRU authority to sue the city of which it is a unit. 2, the attorney notes that HB 1645 was a special law. I think the attorney needs to answer the question, how does a special law, how does 1645 in particular, negate or nullify Florida Statute 166.031, which gives city and county commissions the authority to place any charter referenda on the ballot? I mean, perhaps Chuck Clemens could have put into 1645 that 166.031 doesn't apply here, but he didn't. So these are 2 very important legal questions, and I think it is a waste of ratepayers' money if you allow this to proceed without having a solid answer for both those questions from your attorney. Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board for discussion.
There's a late foot.
Oh, sorry.
And I just want to say that I very strongly support Gainesville Residents United's referendum question. I very much want that to be on the ballot. I think it ought to be up to the people of this city who own this utility to decide who we want to have control that utility. You're not electable. Nothing that I say to you can affect your positions. But I can elect or choose not to elect the people who run the city of Gainesville. So I feel like this is an issue of democracy and democratic ownership of a utility which belongs to the city where I live. And I feel like you guys are very afraid to hear what the people of Gainesville actually think about whether you should be running our utility.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, could the citizen please repeat their name for the record?
Oh, ma'am, would you please state your name?
Elizabeth Hill.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, couple things. One, it was taken away from the city because the city did a bad job over a lot of time. That's not deniable. You can do the math, and that's pretty obvious. So that's number one. Number two, this is a power company. It's not like we're doing weird stuff with it. We're trying to make the rates. Sir, please, little decorum. You've been talking the whole time. I haven't said nothing to you, Mr. Shapiro, but if you are, it's getting aggravating, so just stop. Sir. Sir. Okay. So at any rate, if we were to say, you know what, we're all going to resign, give it back to the city, what do you hope the city does? They did a poor job the first time. So that's a genuine question. I mean, and I'd take an answer. The city abused it. They took too much money from it. They're not utility professionals. We have a good utility professional running it now. So what do you guys hope? And this is a genuine question. You can feel free to answer me. What do you hope the city's going to do better than us? We live here. We want GRU to be better. We can't work on the problems with GRU right now because we're constantly doing the same thing. It's constantly the same conversations that's brought up by the public of, we want the city to have control. Well, you know what I want? I want customer service better. I want lower rates. I want some accountability when I call someone at GRU. Ed's doing a pretty good job, but he would have a lot more time to do a better job if we could get past that. So seriously, if the city takes back over, what do you guys want? Because maybe we can do that for you. What do you want the city's going to do that we're not? Please, it's a genuine question. Everybody wants the city. You guys all said you wanted the city to take over, so what do you want?
So David, we already had public comment.
I know, but I understand that, but I mean, I'm at the point where like none of them really answered, you know? Yeah, sure, come on. Well, I don't know. That's actually an Eric call.
Yeah, let's, maybe a discussion after the board meeting.
All right.
That'd be great to have an engagement there, but I think everyone's had a chance to comment. I think after the board meeting.
I'll talk to you after the board meeting.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear it.
Thank you. Any other members have any comments?
I understand there are also some private possible lawsuits that are out there, such as Mr. Ray Washington. How are those encompassing and working with us, or are those just a separate entity? Can they move forward as well in tandem with us?
I think those, Mr. Chair, I think any other lawsuits would be somewhat similar. There may be some other avenues to those lawsuits that, different claims that may be made. There is an idea in the law of conjoining. If you have the same issues that are before the court in one case, then you can conjoin those cases together for judicial efficiency. And it would be very likely that the cases would be conjoined. There's another provision called consolidation, and the conjoining is a more likely scenario in my estimation.
Thanks for the question. I think it's a great question, but I also feel like, we can't rely on others. We've got to do it.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just clarify for our clerk for the record, the comment was made at the beginning. This is more broad than just the resolution that's on as sort of the last item on the resolution agenda. So just so that everyone's aware, this motion that was made is more broad than that resolution alone.
Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next order of business is resolutions, the first of which is item 2024.
Excuse me.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Attorney, I know we have had the habit of reading every resolution in. We also can adopt where we read in by title only, correct? So
That's
we don't.
correct.
Yeah, just because of the amount of resolutions, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion, it would say by title only or as stated, and that would be sufficient, correct?
Yes.
If I were making a motion, okay. Just clarification so you don't get dry mouth and lose your voice tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, to clarify, when we say title, we're just discussing the introductory item number, title, not the title on the resolution page, correct?
Yeah, and I could say by title only and as stated. It covers it twice.
So what I generally do, Christine, is read the resolution number, read the title of the resolution, like the next item on the agenda is 2024-557, and then I read the title, Resolution of the City of Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit, read all of that to an effective date, and then the appropriate motion would be to pass that resolution number by title only. And then
Should I do title only or title only and stated because it'll be in public record?
Title only and stated.
Okay, just cover them both, okay. If I'm the one making the motion.
Yeah.
I just,
Make the motion.
Mr. Chair.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just.
You gotta read it
As Mr. Walker shared, that historically has been our practice, so I just want to clarify, I feel like there might be two different things being stated, because normally we do just read that introductory paragraph as well. And so I'm just wondering if that's the same as what you're saying, just to make sure.
They went pretty long, most of the resolutions. He's just talking about in the bold.
Correct, that is
Okay.
what we normally read that,
Okay.
and not the whereas statements. Is that
That's right.
the same understanding?
That's right.
Okay, got it, correct.
So you made the motion?
No, I haven't made a motion. She has to read it in. Just, I interrupted the whole procedure by point of order.
That's okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you again. So we are discussing resolutions, and just as a friendly reminder, these will be roll call required. The first of which is item 2024-557, resolution authorizing the amendment of resolution number 2024-557 adopted by the GRU Authority on August 7th, 2024, with the recommendation that the GRU Authority adopt the proposed resolution. I will now speak the title, the paragraph, into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, authorizing on behalf of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, the amendment of resolution number 2024-557 adopted by the authority on August 7th, 2024, providing other details with respect thereto and providing an effective date.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 2024-557 by title only and stated.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, in the Auditor General's report, they were very concerned about the billings of Holland and Knight. And the narrative was, our debt is so complicated, only Holland and Knight can deal with it. And this is one of the most expensive law firms in the world. They're on the band validation, 200 grand. All these manipulations, I could just see the billing. You don't even know how much they're billing you. You don't know how much how they billed you on this settlement and this huge lawsuit that they lost. Like, these people, you know, this is all under Nee, who's getting fired later on. And you're really going to have to look at not just changing Mr. Nee and Mr. Walker, but you're going to have to take a look at all these other parasites that are sucking GRU ratepayer money by hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. It's big, and Ed needs to get involved in that. I know that Mr. Walker does not use Holland and Knight. He's told me that, and I think they're a little bit too rich for Newberry and Alachua. They can't afford them. So I think we need to look at our relationship with Holland and Knight. I think they're overcharging us for sure. And I don't even know if they're giving us good representation when I look at that settlement on the consent agenda. This doesn't look like a law firm doing a good job to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Ernesto Martinez. I certainly hope I'm not out of order here, but with respect to this amendment that you're discussing now, I read in the middle of the section, it says number 2024-557 by adjusting the definition of 2019A defeased bonds in the definition section of the resolution. Forgive my ignorance, but that makes absolutely no sense to me. If it does to the attorneys or the general manager, I will respectfully leave this podium and let y'all go on with your meeting. But I'm lost on that. Thank you.
I believe it was, the reason why we're doing this is there was a typo in the original resolution. And I apologize. That's why this resolution is purely to correct, for the record, a legal document.
That's correct. A single maturity was left off the definition in the definition section. Doesn't change any numbers, doesn't change anything related to the defeasance of the bonds. It's simply a Scrivener's error that's being corrected.
Thank you.
For clarification, should I assume the last motion passed unanimously?
Yes,
Yeah, because I only heard you say it passed.
it did pass unanimously.
Yeah, just for the media that
Yes, ma'am.
they aren't here, they're online because we don't have Cox cable.
Thank you.
Any for the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing there's no additional public comment, back to the board for discussion. Seeing no discussion,
Thank you. Now go through the roll call vote. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Jacobs.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
yes.
Yes, thank you. The item passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item for resolutions is number 2024-632, a resolution eliminating the 25% surcharge imposed on Gainesville Regional Utilities water and wastewater connection charges to entities and consumers located outside of the corporate limits of the city of Gainesville. And now I will read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of the city government of City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the authority granted to the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority in the city charter, providing that the application of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, Article 4, Section 27 through 128 rates and charges, and Section 27 through 169 rates and charges to the operations of Gainesville Regional Utilities is amended to eliminate the 25% surcharge imposed on Gainesville Regional Utilities water and wastewater connection charges to entities and consumers located outside of the corporate limits of the City of Gainesville, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date of September 30th, 2024.
So, I believe, Christine, what the member asked was that we just review, or just read in the bold part, and not
Because that's
the
what I consider a
description.
title. Is that not right?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to read the rest
On
because
the- on the
that's
other
my
ones.
statement. That's why I was trying to save you the
Not
words.
the description
Okay,
part.
hold on
Yeah.
a second.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think that there are two different documents that we're looking at, so I think that I've solved the riddle. On your agenda, I see that there's bold, okay? And the resolution itself also has basically like a paragraph in bold. That paragraph in bold is the resolution title. This is an abbreviated title on your agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay. I was trying to save voice. I'm ready to make a motion now. Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-632 by title and stated.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second, public comment?
A couple of things, Mr. Chair. Jim Conish. This money will continue to flow automatically into city coffers to be dispensed to their favorite developers in direct violation of 1645. Mr. Cunningham didn't bother to deal with hemorrhaging. I hope Ed does. They gave away 1.8 million of these surcharges to the city commission, who just gave it away like candy, like to a baby, to their favorite developers. This is what 1645 is supposed to stop. Moreover, since the county is not paying for streetlights and the city's not paying for streetlights in the county, and we're getting gypped on that. Why don't we make a deal with the county commission to eliminate more of the surcharges on your overpriced electricity in return for a break on the county utility tax? And make some kind of grand bargain to actually do something for the ratepayers, something this authority has done zero. We got the bond council getting paid well, we got Ed getting paid well, a lot of people are getting paid well. The ratepayers have gotten nothing except no increase next year. Nothing. Zero. And we'll pass 1.8 million across the street to be given away arbitrarily in a politicized process, sometimes to apartment complexes that had already been built. We need to follow the money. We need to stop the hemorrhaging, not just discontinue the surcharge October 1st, stop the money from going to the city commission and claw. This is not an SOA loss. This is a flagrant violation of 1645 to take like almost an onerous charge and give it to the city commission so that they can expend it politically. And it's all over the place, stuff like this. So you're doing the right thing, but the details matter in terms of ever giving out targeted rate relief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Bobby Murmer speaking on behalf of myself as ACLC coordinator, myself as a city resident and ratepayer, member of the Gainesville Residents United Board, and also wanted to convey some information that I have received from ratepayers both inside the city and outside of city limits. This 25% surcharge on water and wastewater connections for out-of-city customers was originally used for Connect Free. Am I right there? Okay. Member Haslam had asked what we want. The people who support the referendum, one of the things we wanted was we wanted Connect Free because we want affordable housing. Another thing we wanted, net metering, because solar energy is cheap and clean. These are just two examples of things we want. So I just wanted to use this opportunity, instead of speaking after the meeting where the public and the media can't hear it, I wanted to go on record saying that we are willing to answer questions, those of us who oppose this authority board. And we do have a vision for the future. And it includes keeping important programs like Connect Free. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make a point here, Chair, to address that? Connect Free was for converting folks in the city from septic to wastewater. They couldn't find the people that were willing to do it, so they diverted funds from the city for other purposes. So that's not even a truism. Secondly, the net metering is still in place. We're just paying the rate, which is our avoided cost, what we would pay for our own production. So we haven't eliminated net metering at all.
Thank you.
Chair, Chuck Ross. I think I'd like to point out that this doesn't have any effect to GRU whatsoever. It's a pass-through, and it's a common charge that's done in other cities. And as the prior speaker pointed out, this is an example of one of the things that you actually have no business even getting involved in, frankly. So that's the main point. And whatever justifications that the CEO just said is not used what it was supposed to be used for, it's used for something else, are completely irrelevant. I'd just like to make a comment, Chair. When we come up here and speak and we have one on your board member start to go after us or criticize us, I really would appreciate if you would put a stop to that. It's inappropriate because we're down here, we're in the cheap seats, and we have the right to speak our minds without being criticized or bullied. And this is not the first time. It was also done at the last meeting, and I don't appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela Castile again. I would like to say that I can second what Jim Conish said. The bleed needs to stop. And as for what a customer just sent me regarding my last comment, and she says, "Thank you, Miss Angela, for telling the board about us county people. I live in the county." I told her she was welcome. She says, "You're welcome to use my name." Her name is Jackie Hatcher. Her light bill was $216 for her, only herself. The bleed really needs to stop because there are a lot of people that can't afford their utility bills. I won't get into the whole GHA thing. I've been pushing people, to get the energy audit, and one person did, and it was found that GHA was the reason for her bill being at least $1,000 a month for the last 9 years. So they haven't fixed the things that they needed to fix. I don't know where to go with that, but I do know that she's trying her best because she lives in those apartments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I too would, excuse me, I too would like to have more affordable housing. We could be doing a lot in our community had the city commission not maxed out GRU's credit card on a multi-billion-dollar biomass plant in a spending spree. If the city commission really cared about affordable housing, they would cut their bloated budget and their massive staff that they have. So I don't see, anything. I support this motion. I don't see how this would help the problems that the city commission has been doing for decades with all their grifting. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could the citizens state their name for the record?
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Debbie Martinez.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey Shapiro. And I just had a couple of items I wanted to address. One is that I too believe that a great deal of the expenditures of people on their bills is due to the poor situation of their housing, quite often. And I'm a volunteer with the Community Weatherization Coalition, and I believe we do good work. I've visited many residences and tried to help them to ameliorate the problems they have with paying their bills. In fact, I also pay $200 a month to the, what's it called, Project Share. And I hope that's doing some help. Mr. Browarski says he doesn't know what happens to the money, but it goes to charities that pay people for their bills, apparently. I'd like to know more about that. But I do want to help people who owe money on their electricity bills or whatever, their water bills. Water can be a big problem. You can lose thousands of gallons a day and be charged a great deal by GRU if you aren't aware of how to shut off your water if there's a leak. There are a lot of problems like this. Often people can't even find where the shutoff is, and I show them, and we work on that to make sure that it's accessible because it's often buried inside the box. So there are a lot of these problems that people face, and I definitely believe, and I try to help with those situations. So I hope that you pay attention to that. I don't like the fact that Community Weatherization has had its entire grant, or part of the grant at least, I think it's the entire grant from GRU removed. That's not good. I think GRU should be doing its best to try to help people conserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Donald Shepard, and once again, as all the people have been speaking tonight, it's all about utility bills, and the public don't have the money to pay it. groceries. You got it taken, go to food banks to survive. And when you go to the food bank, they don't tell you whether you're signing for a Democrat or a Republican. So how do you know what you're representing? And I'm a Republican, a proud Republican, and I think that the Republican Party needs to take over, the same as GRU needs to take over and take back the money that the city has taken from them. And I appreciate your comments, sir. I can't see your name.
It's David Haslam.
Mr. David Evans. I appreciate your comment. It was spot on, and that question was right to the top of the hat as far as what needs to be asked and get a reply on. Because how can you all help us if you don't have the answer? So can we get somebody to go door to door and look at people's bills and talk to them and say, this is what program we can get to help you? I'm one of those people that's got to shut off coming because of my high utility bill, but I live on a fixed income. What am I to do? I don't know all these projects that they're talking about. So what is an elderly person such as myself supposed to do? So I'd like help on that. And thank you.
Thank you. Seeing there's no other public comment, back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Just piggybacking on Director Haslam's comments earlier, this board's been in existence for just a short period of time. The city commission had decades to get us to where we are today. And it's going to take a little time for us to work this out. But I can assure you, just even the little time that I've been here, talking with Mr. Belarski and stuff, we're always working on ways to improve, bit by bit, and different things we can do to improve the customers' bills. We're all, at least some of us are, the utilities, we use the utilities ourselves. So, that's our main job here, is to make things better. And let me say that we're working to that end, but it's going to take some time. And we appreciate the suggestions that you all bringing up, and those are all things we'll look at in the future. But, we're going to need some time to get out of the debt we're in, and 'cause it took a while to get here. It's going to take a little bit to get out.
Mr. Chair. I was actually on the commission when we were working on the Connect Rate. And it amazed me that we had virtually zero people take advantage of the connection for one reason or another. I mean, some of it was, our sales pitch was, we'll help you connect, then you can pay us a monthly bill.
Yeah.
Even though their septic tanks are failing, back in the day, it was 3,500 septic tanks within our service area. Is it still about the same?
Well, Debbie Dougherty's in the back.
Okay, but yeah, so about that. So we actually changed it back then, and we said, okay, let's help nonprofits. And so we started using that to help connect nonprofits for the water and for the sewer. And correct me if I'm wrong, we did that. Mm-hmm. The problem here is, in my mind, we're collecting something that we're handing over to the city. If they want to collect it, they can go collect it. We're not stopping them from collecting it. They're more than welcome to collect it. We're just saying that we're not going to get the black eye for it anymore. Mr. Conifer said probably 6,000 times, quit charging for the garbage and the stormwater on our bills because we get the black eye for it. It's one thing I think we actually agree on. And again, we're trying to be fair to those people, but I can't stop looking up there. It says John R. Kelly Generation Station, owned by the people it serves. It doesn't say owned by the city of Gainesville. It says owned by the people it serves. So we are penalizing people, okay? The city made a decision to go outside their city limits. It was a business decision. And I'm ready to stop that practice. And if the city wants to collect it, they're more than welcome to.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shapiro was talking about, project share and those things. And over the years, I've talked to Mr. Shapiro, and he's obviously a man that cares very much and, does what he thinks is right. Project Share is out there collecting money that we distribute to other charities who then take applications from folks who need the assistance. So GRU doesn't, use the money itself. It goes to Catholic Charities and different places like that. So they're actively, I think we had somewhere in the order of $30,000, $40,000 that were contributed on an annual basis. So that'd be nice if we could do, more than that. But we are trying to promote that as much as we can. And then the other thing that was talked about was this idea, when people have a water leak and all of a sudden, they see, a very large bill and those types of things. That's exactly the strategy we took when we got into AMI. Because with AMI, boom, when there's a water leak, you can get a text that all of a sudden your usage is high. Get a plumber. We can come out and check. Do those types of things, and all of a sudden, you don't have that $1,000 bill. It's probably the single most effective way we can help people with their bills, because then they can actually monitor their bills, and they have an expert on the inside monitoring that with them, because we can compare them to other ones and say, geez, the algorithm is here. I think they have a problem in there. They have a leaky toilet, they have this, or they have that. And unfortunately, it goes against the good intentions of the city commission over the years by them not allowing GRU to have the resources to do it. We got into the biomass plant, we got into the solar feed-in tariff, we got into all those other things. So we wanted to offer this, and we're one of the last companies in Florida that actually has AMI, and yet we want to be cutting edge. This is the most important thing the utility has to do, and we're trying to implement it as quickly as possible so we can offer relief for our customers. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Jacobs.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously. I will go ahead and move on to the next item. Item number 2024-633, a resolution authorizing Gainesville Regional Utilities, GRU, to obtain a utility attorney who shall be a legal advisor to and attorney for GRU, free from the direction and control of another legal entity, such as a city commission, with the recommendation that the GRUA adopt the proposed resolution. I will go ahead and read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, operating as a unit of city government and as the governing board of Gainesville Regional Utilities, pursuant to the authority granted to the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority in the city charter. The CEO or GM is herein authorized to employ, retain, and otherwise utilize the necessary legal counsel serving as legal advisors to and attorneys for Gainesville Regional Utilities, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt 2024-633 as stated by title only.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I would like to note that the utility attorney that works for Mr. Nee is not here. Mr. Nee is not here. I think I might know why. I'd like to read to you Florida Bar Rule 4.17, Conflict of Interest, Current Clients. It's very simple. Except as otherwise provided in subsection B, and that's informed consent, a lawyer must not represent a client if the representation of one client will be directly adverse to another client. When Mr. Nee belligerently insisted that he's the attorney for GRU because the city owns the GRU and the city, and therefore, as city attorney, he must represent GRU, that's unethical. He cannot represent the city commission and GRU because, as we're seeing tonight, they're adverse to each other. So that was unethical. That's grounds for having your license taken away, and Mr. Carroll knew that, was very upset about it as an attorney. But it's even worse than that, because in the charter, it states, All officers and employees of the city who serve under the supervision and direction of the city general manager, GRU, shall serve under Mr. Belarski. So if Mr. Nee wants to be GRU's attorney, he has to resign from his city attorney position. He has to apply for a job with Ed. Ed has to hire him. And the same goes for Mr. Nee's assistant utility attorney. Mr. Nee's assistant utility attorney has zero future with Mr. Nee. Zero. She needs to come to work for Ed or Mr. Walker, and then she'd have a bright future. But she's basically out of business. And it should have been back in October, I might add. And while this goes on, you're paying Mr. Nee's office massive amounts of money to engage in unethical conduct. You, as a CEO of a hospital, you would never hire an attorney who is in cahoots with the plaintiff's attorney suing for malpractice, or the insurance companies that don't want to protect you. If it's not an independent attorney, it's a crooked attorney per se. Any attorney that's not independent and not zealously representing your interest rather than your opponent's interest, you cannot do it. It should have been taken care of in October, and we've lost millions of dollars by refusing to recognize this simple truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Debbie Martinez. I support the motion, and I just wanted to clarify some disinformation that came from the public earlier. Yes, it would be wonderful if everyone in Gainesville, had super highly, insulated, the best weather stripping in the world. But the truth is, GRU customers were living in these so-called leaky buildings prior to the biomass boondoggle and the spending spree that the city commission drove us over the financial cliff, and they were able to pay their utility bills just fine. So to try to blame poor lower-income people who are now living in mold-infested homes because they can no longer afford to turn on their air conditioners is because they live in leaky buildings is disgusting and despicable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Shapiro. I just wanted to address a couple of the issues that Mr. Conish brought up. I fully disagree with him. I believe that a major problem that's existing, we hear it tonight in multiple ways, a major problem that's existing is due to the law that I understand Mr. Conish had a lot to do with. That law says that the authority is part of the city of Gainesville. Now, I notice that a key goal that the authority seems to have is entirely dissociating itself and GRU from city government. And how can that be if GRU and the authority are part of the city government? That's an oxymoron. And I believe that you need to deal with that first and foremost. The only way to deal with it that I can figure out is to rewrite the law. It needs major rewriting. There are a lot of contradictions in that law and a lot of vagaries. And this is the reason why Mr. Conish can claim what he's claiming, that the city attorney should have nothing to do with and is illegal, according to Mr. Conish, in meddling with the GRU authority's business. That's totally wrong. You just don't understand, no one understands the relationship between the authority and the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Shepard, and I back Jim Carnish 100%. What he said was exactly the facts of the law. So Mr. Severo needs to go back to his office or wherever he represents himself, and he needs to take a good look at what the law states. The law is saying that Mr. Carnish's facts were real. And so I get up just for that factor. But there's a lot of other factors somebody mentioned Ray Washington, and he's another man that got done wrong by our city commission. I, myself, got done wrong 2 years in a row, thrown out of the city commission. Ed Borowski lost his job at the city commission because of the fandangle of what the city commission chose to do. And throwing the city out into the expressway, and throwing Mr. Borowski out on the curb, that was wrong. And the citizens stood behind Mr. Borowski, and that's why Mr. Borowski is here today, is because the people stand behind him. And we, the people, want to this here acknowledge that Mr. Shapiro statements against Jim Carter are false, and I want somebody to take and bring that to court, because this here is something that shouldn't be dirtying Mr. Carnish's name or GRU's. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the board for discussion.
Could I just make?
Yes, sir.
The utility attorney is no longer with the city. The reason she's not here is that she's not from the city. She's not avoiding anything. And there are representatives from the city attorney's office that are here, just for the public itself.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I have no problem with Mr. Nee. I've always had a great relationship with Mr. Nee. But I do think there's times there's going to be a conflict. I mean, and this is one of them, the referendum, in my opinion. I think it puts him in an awkward position, and then I think it doesn't put the board in a good position. And so I'm definitely in favor of this, and I'm going to be voting yes.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move forward with the roll call vote. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Jacobs.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the next item. Number 2024-634, a resolution requesting reinstatement to the previous provision in the City Code of Ordinances exempting Gainesville Regional Utilities, GRU, from applicable right-of-way regulations and permit fees other than to the extent GRU is acting as, and I apologize, the title is cut off there. Give me one moment. As, I know it says, so sorry, as, it's also cut off there. Apologize, the title is cut off on my printout. I believe.
Christine, if I may, I believe
Yes, please,
it's
if you have it.
communication services provider.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, and now we'll go ahead and read the title into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority operating as a unit of city government and as the governing board of Gainesville Regional Utilities pursuant to the authority granted to the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority in the city charter, providing that the application of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 6, Section 23 through 111, applicability to the operations of Gainesville Regional Utilities is requested to be amended to reinstate the previously existing exemption from such provision for Gainesville Regional Utilities other than to the extent GRU is acting as a communication services provider, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-634 as stated by title only.
I will second that motion.
A motion and a second. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I'd like to read to you 7.10 general provisions out of Article 7. No franchise, right-of-way license, permit, or usage fee or tax may be levied by the city upon the authority or the utilities unless allowed by general law. I gave you a copy of the privilege-free case right here in Alachua County. I went to see Marion Ratson after this matter arose, and he was befuddled by it. I said, Marion, this is a tax. This is not a fee. It took the Supreme Court 4 pages to shoot it down. And there's one sentence that sort of explains this matter of franchises. A franchise is negotiated. If the utility goes in there without a franchise, which has happened with the city and the county right-of-ways, the GRU utilities were allowed in there without franchise agreements. They get to stay there forever without paying anything and without being under any regulations, because our very own Alachua County privilege fee case. You just cannot retroactively impose a contract. It's like adverse possession or an easement by prescription. In order to avoid having the privilege fee declared an unconstitutional tax, Alachua County argued that the fee was a reasonable rental fee, a user fee, or a franchise fee. However, the trial court ruled that the privilege fee was neither of the above, but rather the fee was an unconstitutional tax and the bond was therefore invalid. This was a bond validation proceeding. So the law is crystal clear that they cannot impose these permits on you, the general law, and there's nothing about 1645 that could be interpreted to give them a right to bill you for something you've enjoyed for free for $100. Not you, the ratepayers who own the utility. So this is another example of Mr. Nee bringing forth something that's obviously illegal, causing the wastage of hundreds of thousands of dollars of ratepayer money and taxpayer money. Just like the Judge Dempsey debacle, we're wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars dealing with frivolous legal actions that, like one speaker said, it's just political theater. And, this needs to stop. You don't need an attorney general opinion. You need to have the attorney general come in and intervene and kick butt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait until someone sits down.
Chuck Ross again. I can't argue whether or not this is proper based on HB 1645, but I think it's a reaction to the way the two boards, with this board and the city, are not cooperating with each other. And this is what happens. You have these battles going on, and the complaint I heard from your side was that, well, they're initiating all these lawsuits. Yeah, because they feel like you guys are not a proper authority that answers to anybody, so I get it. But on the other hand, so the city is trying to compensate for and treat you like you want to be separate, so this is what you would be treated for if you're separate. Just a reaction, a thought. Thank you.
Good evening, Brian Singleton, Public Works Director. Utilities are authorized in the right-of-way by legislator to save the utility owners costs for not obtaining their own land rights. However, the primary purpose of the right-of-way is the safe and efficient movement of people, goods, and services. All other uses are secondary, such as trees, parking, utilities. 337-401 Florida statute authorizes the right-of-way entity responsible for the right-of-way to prescribe and enforce reasonable rules and regulations, including permits and permit fees. The rules and regulations adopted by city ordinance are reasonable and consistent with FDOT requirements and Alachua County requirements that GRU already works within. In accordance with state statute, the permit fees are limited to the cost of permit reviews and permit inspections. The permit fees are not annual fees or right-of-way use costs. The legislative charter amendment prohibits any new costs and fees unless already authorized by general law. As previously noted, this is authorized by general law. Informally, we have been permitting GRU work since fiscal year 17. The rules and regulations in accordance with the ordinance have been followed less permit and permit fees. We looked at the top 25 municipalities by population. 18 of those own utilities. Of those 18, 16 require permit and permit fees from their utility. Permit inspections include proper maintenance of traffic for setup for the safety of GRU workers and the traveling public. Inspections also include that the roadway infrastructure is restored correctly. GRU does a great job with its infrastructure, and they are utility experts, but they are not experts in transportation infrastructure and roadway safety. Just like my staff is not experts in utility infrastructure and utility inspections. This fiscal year, 150 emails have been sent to GRU staff regarding substandard infrastructure work in the right-of-way. That includes potholes, trip hazards, missing sidewalks, incomplete restorations, and substandard MOT. The city pays utility permit fees and inspection fees for GRU infrastructure. We also pay our utility bills for traffic signals and irrigation in the right-of-way. We do not expect GRU to cover our transportation costs in the right-of-way. As such, there should be no expectation for the city to cover GRU utility costs in the right-of-way. When there's a transportation project that crosses the utility right-of-way, we never object to paying the appraised value to use that utility right-of-way. When we also do not object to paying for utility work when the law requires. So I ask the authority to comply with the laws and ordinances of the state and the city and cover the utilities costs of doing business in the right-of-way for the safe and efficient movement of goods and services. Our automated permitting system is set up and ready to go live without any additional implementation costs to the GRU, to public, or to other utilities. Thank you.
Good evening, again, Angela Castile. So I appreciate Jim Conish's comment and reading of the law. I second what he says, and I am seeing that the city is the pot calling the kettle black. 1 minute, they're like, hey, it's an entity of the city, and you can't do this, but hey, we're gonna charge you. Which is it? Is it that they can't do one thing, but they can do another? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. They're contradicting themselves. I'm about ready for them to just dissolve the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, Bobby Murmer. So once again, I'm asking the authority to vote no on this item, knowing full well that it will be a unanimous yes. And I wanted to point out that this will trigger a charter crisis. A charter is essentially our city's constitution. This will trigger a constitutional crisis. I know the enacting clause in section 1 says that you're merely requesting that the city revoke the ordinance, but the CEO had told a journalist from Main Street Daily News that if the city does not abide, then he will direct GRU to just follow this resolution. So the plan, according to your CEO, as it was relayed to Main Street Daily News, was to basically just violate the city law. I mean, you just authorized a lawsuit to take away my vote and the vote of all City of Gainesville citizens. So why don't you authorize a lawsuit to duke this out? If this is a violation, if charging permit fees, if requiring GRU to pull permits on the public right-of-way is a violation of HB 1645, then sue over it. You guys are willing to spend ratepayer money on legal services. Come on, let's have a party. Let's just, if we're gonna go big, let's go big or go home, right? Like, don't do this sneaky thing where you're passing a resolution that says that you're requesting the city commission do something when your CEO is going behind your backs and saying he's gonna tell his employees to do what he wants them to do regardless of what the city says. If a yes vote on this is a vote to flagrantly violate the law. Keep that in mind. Thank you.
My name's Don Shepard, and he's right on one thing, is a vote of the Democrats. That what 50-some years has been putting the people in poorhouses, has been robbing from the people. Kim Moulton should be fired immediately, removed from office. She violated the Constitution. The mayor of the city of Gainesville also violated this Constitution. We don't need to take and point out all of the people involved, but they know who they are. And this man backs out of that? No, this man is a Democrat, as he stated, and he has never been at the meetings and when there's been something that is on this factor. You asked the gentleman that stood here before him, that big tall guy, and he'll take and verify that this man, when it comes to something important like this, he's not around. So why should we be listening to this man? I know he has a right for his own voice, but this here is something that I would take the court over. This man, being a Democrat, I'd love to erase him because he need not state anything in behalf of the people because the people are the ones that put him in office. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, I just have to correct the record, and that is, when I talked to the Main Street Daily News, I told them that I would abide by the resolution that the board approved. And if that was in conflict with the city, I work for the authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Bolarski, can you tell me how many permits we would typically pull in a year? Do you have that kind of information?
I have some people here that may be able to address that. I think the latest estimate, just from one area, was somewhere in the order of 3,000. But Debbie Doherty, who's in charge of my our water department, can address that. But I would say that 150 email number was something we requested at a joint meeting with the city manager, and when it was told to us that we were not taking care of the right-of-ways, and we asked what kind of communication there was between general government and ourselves, and we were told that it would take a long time to find that type of information. So I would suggest to you that 150 emails of substandard work over thousands of interactions on a daily basis actually is a tribute to our workers trying to comply with not only utility standards but DOT standards as well. Well, go ahead, Debbie.
So to address your question, we have been working with Public Works to understand what we will permit and what will be a notification, because in the past we have only done notifications. So I would say when we say 2,000 to 3,000, there is 2,000 to 3,000 permits that would be done a year. Some of those are notifications, not permits, but it is a communication between GRU and Public Works is what we expect. Now, and I'm quoting water wastewater numbers. If you think about water wastewater, we are in every street, every sidewalk, every curb. That is us. Gas is also there, not in the quantity that we are. And then energy delivery would be out there some also, but we are the highest user. So that number would be larger when you add gas and energy delivery in. So it's a lot of communication back and forth on a more than daily basis.
Thank you. You answered my follow-up.
Can I ask Debbie a question?
Yeah.
Just for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, but prior to the board being, we cut a 1-foot hole across the street, we patch it. Now we have to do 50 foot of the road, correct?
Yes, but that's related to the design and construction manual that Public Works has in the Land Development Code as part of Chapter 30. So any repair in the city limits, they are requiring a 50-foot pavement repair.
But do we have to do that before this board was put in place?
It's new. I don't know that it's timed necessarily with the board, but it is new.
It is new.
Yeah, it's always been there, but our pavement cuts were
And
always
ultimately,
smaller.
that cost will be passed on to our ratepayers.
Yes.
Okay.
It will, yes.
Everybody was concerned about our ratepayers earlier. I just wanted to help them out a little bit.
Thank you. Madam Secretary?
Chair Carter, thank you. I'll do the roll call vote now. Director Carter?
Yes.
Director Jacobs?
Yes.
Director Skinner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously. Chair Lawson, I'll go ahead and read the last item. Item 2024-636, a resolution requesting City of Gainesville's ordinance number 2024-352 and ordinance number 2024-448, placing a referendum on the November ballot be rescinded and taking all necessary actions to ensure the ballot measure shall not appear therewith, with the recommendation that the GRUA adopt the proposed resolution. I will now go ahead and read the title of the resolution into the record. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority operating as a unit of city government and as the governing board of Gainesville Regional Utilities pursuant to the authority granted to the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority in the city charter is requesting that ordinance number 2024-448 and ordinance number 2024-352 are each rescinded and revoked in full, requesting that all appropriate parties take all actions necessary to alert the supervisor of elections that such ordinances are invalidated and that no ballot measure shall appear on any ballot in accordance therewith, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-636 as stated by title only.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I would again urge Mr. Belarski to really inquire as to possibly filing a writ of prohibition in addition to or in lieu of the declaratory judgment. I feel you're way too late to stop it from getting on the ballot. I may be wrong, but I don't think you're in time. It would have been timely back in June or July, but, you know, vacations and inaction has delayed this crucial decision to the 11th hour. I would also say that, you know, keep in mind, you're not suing the city commission. You're suing the supervisor who's going to do whatever the city commission tells her to do, without any doubt about it. So you're suing her. In the event that your lawsuit isn't timely, and I believe it is, then I would ask you to have a judge tell her not to count the votes until the legality is litigated. And I think the city commission should suffer financial consequences for this outrageous maneuver. I think the direct transfer should be paused. I think we should claw back all the money we've given to Nee, because he had no business providing the representation he provided. I think the Florida Bar should be notified of how Mr. Nee and his associate have flaunted the pertinent ethical rules that he's sworn to uphold in addition to the Constitution. On top of that, and that people start being held accountable for wasting our money. These people are wasting our money like they've done for 24 years. This is real money. $545,000 for Nee's office, $200 Holiday night for bond validation. We're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars in legal fees that are just completely unnecessary. The legislature has spoken. Why don't they have a referendum and repeal the abortion ban? Why don't they have a referendum and repeal open carry? Why not every time the legislature passes a law they don't like, just call for a referendum? Is that the kind of country anyone wants to live in? If so, go to the Banana Republic. That's the way they do things. This is just, no one is being held accountable for the hemorrhaging that are being borne by the ratepayers who have been neglected, to say the least, for 24 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Bobby Murmer, coordinator of the Alachua County Labor Coalition. Sorry. One of the examples just cited was, I found funny, so want to clear the record, as everybody here likes to do today. We have put the abortion ban to a referendum. It's Amendment 4, so the previous speaker is aware. My apologies, he meant city referendum. Fair enough. All right. So the Alachua County Labor Coalition opposes this effort, I guess this duplicative effort, considering your vote earlier in the evening, to try to disenfranchise the city of Gainesville voters. And also, I know some board members keep mentioning that there's a sign out there that says, owned by the people it serves. We agree at the Alachua County Labor Coalition. Those of us who oppose HB 1645, many of our groups also agreed. League of Women Voters, Sierra Club. When this bill was being considered, we asked for a referendum of the entire GRU service territory. That was our big ask. If it's such a good idea, Mr. Clemens, let all of us vote on it. Not just those of us in the city. Every single GRU customer who is eligible to vote, let us have a say. That idea was shot down. We are bound by Florida statute to only allow this referendum to be held or to be asked of city voters. That's out of our hands. We would have loved for this to be voted on by the entire GRU service territory. So can we please just kill that canard, right? Our hands are tied by state statutes. So again, please vote no. We know that you won't, but thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
Chuck Ross again. I realize that every time I've gone up here tonight, I haven't stated my position, even though I've talked negative on the topic. So before I forget again, please vote no. Now, having said that, it's interesting again, why is this board afraid to let the voters weigh in on this? Because if you guys think you're the right way to go, and what's the problem? Let the voters weigh in and let them decide. Why fight it? It doesn't even make any sense. And it has, Mr. Conish is correct. There has been a lot of money wasted, but part of that is because some of the actions of this board, and the fact that this board was created in the first place. I think there were a lot of better ways this could have been done, and I frankly agree that there probably should be some oversight, but not the way this was handled, not with people who don't answer to anybody. Just out of curiosity, I think, I don't know where Mr. Lawson represents one large commercial, you fill the seat with the large commercial usage, right? And I know that you, Mr. Carter, Mr. Skinner, and Mr. Haslam are Gainesville residents. So, Mr. Jacobs, do you mind if I ask, are you a Gainesville resident?
Yes.
So now we have nobody up there that represents the county that's in the service area. So the thing that's been complained about isn't there. Tell me I'm wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela Castile, and I think a point was just made by stating that there's this group and that group that continually show up saying that they speak for the residents of the county and the city. And guess what? They don't. That point was made. It's the groups. And why do other residents not show up? Because they feel like they're never going to be heard over these people. I'm sorry that I'm irritated, but the problem is this referendum definitely needs to be halted in any way that it can. And I know that there is, I can't remember the name of it, but there is a writ of something. And if county residents can jump on that with one of the attorneys, I would love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Hill, speaking as an individual member of the city of Gainesville, citizen or resident or whatever the right word is. And I guess I'll just restate what I said the very first of however many resolutions these have been. I think you guys are afraid of seeing what people really think and what the residents of Gainesville really want, residents of Gainesville really want our utility run and governed. I do want the city to have money from GRU. I know it's going to be, the city commission is going to distribute it based on process of government. That's what I elect them to do. I don't see why this couldn't have been voted on. I wasn't aware that there was a proposal to have it voted on by all of the service area. It sounds like a great idea to me. Why did you oppose that? Why was that opposed by by Chuck Clemens and by the people who put this committee together in the first place and put this resolution together in the first place? I follow this kind of as much as I can, working full time and trying to take an interest in my community. And from what I understand, it was voted on once in 2018 or something, and the city voted it down. So the only way to get control of GRU was to do it by legislative fiat, which is how we ended up where we are now. So I very strongly support the resolution on the ballot, the referendum on the ballot, offering residents of Gainesville at least the opportunity to vote on how we want our city utility to be governed.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Shapiro. I'd like to maybe clarify a little bit. The Gainesville Residents United Incorporated does not claim to be acting on behalf of all the city and county residents who participate as customers in GRU. We are a board of 6 members, and we try to advocate for positions that we think are beneficial to the residents of the city and the county. And in fact, when this law was put forth, we went up and spoke immediately, and our delegation refused to listen to us. In fact, they gave us 30 seconds to speak, and 30 seconds each, that is. And the gist of our argument was that everybody should be represented. And we were willing to talk about that and to put it into the legislation. In fact, we put forth, through Representative Henson, a set of amendments that would change the law to allow representation of the county and the city in the authority. And the authority would not be governed by the governor. Rather, they would be governed by the people of the city and county. And this would allow for much better input than going through the governor directly. So I just wanted to clarify that we tried to be more even-handed. And in fact, eliminating the authority would mean that we would have to have that discussion. And we agree with that. We think that this should be an open discussion about how GRU is governed, not simply an authoritative mandate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Bryant, City Clerk. I had a question of clarification. I read through this resolution, and the title mentions request to rescind. To me, that seems to be asking the City Commission to rescind these ordinances to take the referendum off. However, in the body, it talks about directing the city clerk, and I would like to know specifically what you are expecting of me.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. The resolution in front of you is a request to the City Commission to take all actions necessary to rescind and keep the referendum off the ballot, which can and will, if the Commission chooses to comply with the resolution, include a direction to the city clerk, I imagine, as the city clerk was the individual who was, who directed the referendum to the supervisor of elections. So that's the expectation based on the city commission's decision regarding following or.
So there are
not
no
following.
actions expected of me until it gets rescinded?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Back to the board for discussion.
I didn't have a question for the attorneys. And Mr. Connors has brought up the writ of prohibition. Is that something that we should be looking into as well?
We certainly will look at that and all causes of action and pick what we think is the appropriate actions to take.
Because if that expedites things, we are at the 11th hour at this point. So I think if that's something that is doable or feasible, that we definitely need to look at that. And then Mr. Shapiro, is it Dr. Shapiro? Yes. Okay, sorry, sir. Dr. Shapiro, I would agree with you. Some of the language in the House bill is convoluted. That's why we are here and why we wring our hands in our private meetings with Mr. Bilarski. So I agree with you in that things could be straightened out. But I also, on the flip side, we are not afraid of a vote. We just do not feel that the actions taken were appropriate. Do we necessarily agree that the way that the authority was put into place was 100% appropriate? I don't think any of us would say 100% with anything in this day and age. We can't do that. So we have to work within the framework that we are given. So I do appreciate your comments. I do take a lot of notes. You guys don't see that. You see me looking here. I am taking notes on things that you say. But we do the best job that we possibly can to keep the rates low, keep the utility in good financial standing, while also taking into account those residents outside the city. And love the fact that you guys put forth to have the county voters included in that. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So, but you cannot blame us for state legislatures. And even if we are appointed, we still go out, and I talk at the game day this last weekend, I talked to probably about 150 to 200 residents. And some of you come in here and you claim that you are the residents' representatives. I say that's false, because what people are scared of, to come to this meeting, be in the center, and get beat up by both extremes. And that's where the people are. So you get your little conclave, they get their little conclave, but there's a lot more of us than there in the middle. And that is an issue. And it's not just here in Gainesville, it's countrywide. So, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just some of my concerns, the reason I'm going to support this, and what people haven't brought up that are opposed to this, if this referendum goes through, this utility would go under the city manager. So a lot of people have come up and said, why didn't we do a national search, have Mr. Bilarski vetted? I'm sure the city manager hasn't been vetted to run a utility. So if you were concerned about how it happened before, the city is deliberately not bringing it back under a charter, not restoring it the way it was. They're eliminating that whole position. And I'm not a CPA and I'm not an attorney, but what would stop them from commingling all assets at that point? You know, just, hey, it's one checkbook. So that's where I'm really concerned. So I am going to support this motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll move forward with the roll call vote. Director Carter.
Yes.
Director Jacobs.
Yes.
Director Skinner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously. Mr. Chair, the next item is director comments.
Back to the board members.
I'm going to start at one end and work to the other.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, I would like to commend Mr. Bilarski. There are a lot of citizens that are emailing us privately. I've addressed some of them with him directly. He has personally taken on customer service and the inadequacies there and trying to streamline it. So there are many residents out there that have seen inaccuracies on their bills, shutoffs that are not done appropriately. And I have full confidence. So Ed, I wanted to give you kudos for taking that, because that is a huge undertaking. Whether it's additional modules that you need, whatever we need to do to help reinstore the faith and the customer service at GRU, I think is very huge at this point in time. So I did want to give you kudos for that.
Mine's a praise also, so just trying to copy her a little bit. We had a situation, well, actually, I've been communicating with Mr. Blarski on several issues, and staff has met with me, they've clarified some of the situations. We've had meetings, and we followed up with some more meetings. But we had a gentleman, and I certainly won't mention his name, he's suffering from a terrible disease. He had a request of the city of Gainesville and GRU. And this is kudos to the city of Gainesville. This utility in that city did a backflip to honor his request, and well-deserved, and Mr. Blarski knows who this gentleman is. And I made a statement a long time ago, you know, people say, what do you want out of GRU? Years ago, you had to know somebody to get a job in this utility. And you had to have a brother, or you had to have a hook. I want it to be like that again. I want it to be, how did you possibly get a job at GRU? I knew somebody. Because not too many years ago, people were very proud to wear that uniform everywhere they went, and they knew somebody and they got a job. It was typically a father to a son or a mother to a daughter or vice versa. So that is my goal for this utility, to be honest with you. And we have some of the greatest workers in the world, and thank you so much.
Mr. Jacobs, any comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I would love not to have to be on this board, but here we are. And the city utilities should be a crown jewel of any city. And, you know, when I look at my bill every month, you know, it gets me mad. And I know we can do better, and that's what we're all here trying to do better. And so I look forward to continuing to work with Mr. Blarski. I can tell you, as I've been around the tours, some of the tours we've taken with the workers here, we got some of the finest workers at the utility, and they support what Mr. Blarski's doing. So I want everybody to know out there that you've got a good utility here in the making, and we're going to do our doggone best to make sure that happens. And hopefully, you know, I would love not to have to fight with the city commission back and forth, but, you know, it is what it is now. They're putting roadblocks in our way everywhere we turn, so just give us a chance.
Thank you. Mr. Haslam?
I'd like to say that GRU, from a nuts and bolts standpoint, the people in there's a lot of very good people, and I think we continue to build on that. I'd like to build on that. And it was a genuine statement after the meeting, and it'll be a listening part. I'll just listen. If somebody wants to tell me what they'd like to see when it goes, if it was to go back to the city, what the city would do that we're not doing, I would listen. And I can bring that to Ed, I can bring it to Eric, I can bring it up at meetings, but I'd like to know what we're not doing that you guys would like for us to do. And if I'm bullying or intimidating, whatever, you can email me. That's fine too, or talk to me. I think Dr. Murmur already left, but anybody else, if you want to tell me what you think that we should be doing that we're not doing, we would definitely, I'd definitely like to listen to you for sure, at minimum.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for your participation tonight. Thanks for the board members. I'll work with Ed on a future agenda item to come forward around customer service. I think we all hear that. I think it would be great to spend some time, you know, with the board so that we can have some discussion around that, as well as to get an update on, you know, your vision for what are the next steps for the IRP as well. I know we had to sort of set that aside with some of these other pressing items, but for sure, we'll put that on a future agenda, a very near future agenda, and bring it back to the board. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.